Imagine a set of philosophical puzzles so completely mind-bending that even the Buddha famously refused to answer them. Well, today, we're diving straight into a fascinating 2007 text by an author named Xue Feng that attempts something absolutely incredibly ambitious. We're going to see how he resolves 10 ancient metaphysical paradoxes that have literally stumped scholars for centuries. So buckle up, because we are about to explore the very fabric of reality, existence, and the afterlife.
Now, you might be wondering, why didn't the Buddha just answer them in the first place? Well, according to Xue Feng's interpretation, it definitely wasn't because he didn't know the answers. Rather, he was unwilling to answer because humanity simply wasn't ready to hear them. The text argues that back in that ancient era, even if the Buddha had laid out the exact mechanics of the universe and consciousness, nobody would have understood it. But today, with our modern grasp of physics and reality, Xue Feng posits that we're finally ready to explore and actually answer these 10 questions.
To make sense of all this, here is how we'll break down our explainer today. First up, the unanswered questions. Second, the nature of the universe. Third, the body and the mind. And finally, the fate of Rulai.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, the unanswered questions.
The source material we're looking at presents 10 specific, famously circular questions. And guys, these are intentionally structured as complete paradoxes, like asking if the universe is eternal, and then immediately following up by asking if the universe is not eternal. It feels like a trap, right? Like a philosophical dead end, just meant to make our heads spin. But let's look at how Xue Feng's 2007 framework actually cuts right through these apparent contradictions using a very specific set of definitions.
Moving right along to part 2, the nature of the universe. To answer that very first question, is the universe eternal? Xue Feng says we first have to agree on what the word universe actually means. Here, it's strictly defined as time and space. Now, this is the absolutely crucial part. Time is merely a recorder of the states of material motion. And space? That's directly related to the distribution of matter. Therefore, if physical matter does not exist, time and space simply do not exist. And since matter itself isn't eternal, the universe, as defined by time and space, is not eternal.
So that naturally brings up the second, kind of counterintuitive question. Is the universe not eternal? To answer this one, Xue Feng explores what happens when all that matter just disappears. When matter is gone, time and space are totally gone with it. In that complete absence of time and space, the universe enters a state called chaos. And according to the text, chaos actually is eternal. So the material universe itself isn't eternal, but that underlying state of chaos, that's forever.
Okay, let's move to questions 3 and 4 and see how this all builds into the concept of infinity. Is the universe finite or infinite? To tackle this, the author uses a really fantastic mathematical analogy, pi. When matter exists, it must move. The text states that this motion is circular. Because it's circular motion, it inherently involves pi. And as we all know, pi is infinite and non-repeating. Therefore, much like pi, while matter exists, the universe is infinite. But, conversely, when matter disappears, the universe becomes finite. It's just a brilliant way of using geometric logic to solve a really ancient paradox.
That brings us perfectly to section 3, the body and the mind.
We're going to shift gears now from the macrocosmos down to the individual. Question 5 asks, are the body and the mind the exact same thing? Well, Xue Feng answers that with a definitive no. The text categorizes the physical body as fixed, finite, and strictly belonging to the material category. It is, by definition, a thing. Your mind, on the other hand, is described as free and infinite, belonging entirely to the non-material category. Therefore, they are absolutely fundamentally not the same thing.
And that brings us to question 6. Is the body one thing and the mind another thing? The answer here is a bit of a twist, so stay with me. Yes, the body is indeed one thing, but the mind is not a thing at all. The text explains that wherever consciousness goes, the mind follows right along with it. And because consciousness completely lacks any physical form or shape, the mind also has no shape. In this framework, anything without form or shape is simply not a thing in the material sense.
And now, we've arrived at our final section, the fate of Rulai.
We have finally reached the last 4 questions, which address the ultimate metaphysical mystery. What happens to Rulai, or the Buddha, after death? The source material looks at this single inquiry from 4 seemingly impossible angles. Does Rulai continue to exist after death? Does he not continue? Both? Neither.
Look, if your head is spinning right now, you aren't alone. It honestly sounds like a total logical deadlock.
But don't worry, the crucial point here is that Xufeng provides a remarkably clean solution. The answer to all four of these paradoxes lies entirely in splitting existence into two distinct, separate categories, the material world and the non-material world. Get this, according to Xufeng's interpretation, the very concept of death is purely a material one. The text actually states flatly, for Rulai, there is no issue of death. Death only applies to material properties. If you look purely at the material properties manifested by Rulai, then yes, after death, those manifestations stop. But Rulai's true, non-material existence, that simply continues onward. By breaking this down into two steps, the text neatly resolves those final contradictions. If we ask if Rulai exists and doesn't exist at the exact same time, the framework gives us a totally clear answer. Yes. From the perspective of the material world, Rulai no longer exists. But from the perspective of the non-material world, Rulai continues to exist. Step 1. Material properties cease. Step 2. Non-material properties continue. It's just fascinating how applying this simple framework perfectly satisfies all four paradoxical questions at once.
And that brings us to the end of our journey through these 10 ancient questions. Based on this brilliant 2007 interpretation, we want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. If your physical body is merely a thing tied to finite time and space, but your mind is not a thing and belongs to the infinite, non-material category, which part of you actually continues? It's an absolutely incredible framework for understanding our own material versus non-material existence. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the universe around you.